Sky Squad, we are back in the building. And guess who we have back with us? It's Eboni K. Williams, the host. I guess I should say co host, executive producer,
Oh, it's I am the host, and
host
brilliant Dustin Ross is my co-host.
of Holding Court with Eboni K. Williams. I don't know if you guys have listened to today's podcast, but if you haven't, I will place the link in the description so you can go listen to it. We're going to get into everything we got to talk about. But before we do that, I think it's important to start with some other good news.
Yeah,
And we got to talk about this real quick because I think that we got to talk about the good news. We're going to talk about the other news, but we're going to talk about the real good news first. Okay.
thank
You,
you, Richie.
you have a new book coming out. What inspired Bet on Black? The good news about being Black in America today. Just give me I need what was your inspiration?
Yeah, so again, as I approach almost 40 years old, Richie, I've lived an experience, a powerful experience, a beautiful experience, a complicated experience as a Black woman here in America, and simply put, I know now it is the single most misunderstood construct in our country, and I'm talking about Blackness. And I've been blessed to have several things throughout my life, starting in my early childhood, and I detail all of this in the book, right? That has provided me with a particular education, understanding, knowingness about the actuality of Blackness and its power. I consider my Blackness my superpower. It is my single um, most favorite thing about my identity. And I am several things alongside my Blackness, but my Blackness is the place in which I derive um, my spirit. It just it's it for me, and I know it's it for a lot of us, and for some of us. And this book, let me be clear, is written for Black people unapologetically. Toni Morrison says, you should write your writings for your intended audience, and if others peruse, God bless them. So this is a book for us, Richie, as a culture and as a people, so that all of us can have an opportunity to cast away, negative tropes, narrative around Blackness that most of us have received uh, everywhere our whole lives. Blackness is something people think we should suppress, divorce ourselves from, distance ourselves from, downplay, don't mention it. You say Black, no, sir, not today. Black is powerful. It's beautiful. It's a treasure. And today in America, unlike yesteryear, we get to center it how we want to, when we want to, and show up in its actuality. So it's a good news book, Richie. I really think everybody's going to get something from the book. And hopefully, most importantly, it sparks conversation of an inward relationship with one's Blackness.
All right, now listen, I'm all here for this. The book for you guys, it will be out on January 30th of 2023. So now you can actually pre-order the book.
Yeah.
I will put the link in the description down below so that you guys can get your hands on that.
Thank
Your podcast today, you mentioned that chapter 3 of the book deals with your time on the Real Housewives of New York.
you.
Is there something in particular that you dive into that I feel like you can kind of like give us a little bit of a taste of
Sure.
what to expect from that?
Yeah, I really thought it was important, Richie, for people to understand the details of my origin story on the show. I've spoken about it briefly in interviews, but you know how it is when you're still taping and part of the machine. There always likes to, the powers that be like to maintain a little bit of mystique around how you landed, there with the apple one day. Well, now it's a whole new Roni. Praise God. Praise God. And therefore, praise God. And because of that, we can just really go there in the book. And so I talk about the details from the very first call I got, how that call came to be, who introduced me to executives, what they were looking for essentially, and what ultimately it was about me and where I was in my life at that time, that made them, out of all the women of color in New York, and there's some baddies, okay, they decided that I was the right person at the right time. And indeed I was.
Well, all right now. I'm always fascinated about the behind the scenes. So in particular, that chapter, I was like, oh, okay. I
Yeah.
want to hear about all of those things because I love just the behind the scenes of production and how it works in general.
Yeah.
And today, a big part of our conversation is going to center around behind the scenes topics because, as you guys may know, and if you've been living under a rock, you might have seen Ramona Singer do an interview with Carlos King where she essentially, and I'm paraphrasing,
Hmm.
seemingly insinuated that you were to blame. Well, the complaints that you allegedly lodged against her.
Hmm.
Okay, well, we'll use those terms for right now because I think that there's more to explain. Was the single reason that the Real Housewives of New York City, in its previous incarnation, was canceled, and that you are the reason why those allegations were the reasons why there was no reunion.
That's correct.
You and Dustin go into vivid detail, okay, in your latest episode of Holding Court with Eboni K. Williams, and you respond to literally every single thing. I
Mhm.
want to ask you a very pointed question before we talk about that. You talk about, and this is why another reason why I love your podcast is because I'm fascinated by the law.
Right.
I had an opportunity to get a JD when I was going to grad school, and I am angry that I did not take it. Okay,
Okay.
because I
It's like,
didn't
you know what?
realize.
It's okay, Richie. That's why you got holding court. That's literally why I do holding court, is because I owe Sally Mae anyway. Let's be honest. I'm very serious. This was in my pitch when I wrote my one sheet for my show. I owe Sally Mae anyway. Still owe the bitch. Okay. And so, since that's the case, I might as well spread the good wealth of knowledge around the law, the legal system, the judiciary, the intersection of politics, policy, and the law, which is inextricable, to the people that are designed to know the least about it. That is literally what holding court is made for. So, Richie, don't worry about that. You ain't got to take out them classes, boo. Just go on and listen to holding court.
Well, that's good to know because I'm gonna keep listening. And I was listening before, but in this episode, you mentioned something about the legal concept of opening the door, where
Yes.
a witness brings up something that wasn't supposed to be talked about.
Yes. I'm so glad you caught that and got, what was being put down there.
I did. I did. I felt like I caught a lot. Was this something that what Ramona spoke about? Was this something that was legally supposed to not be spoken about?
Listen, I'm not aware of any kind of what we call four letters document. I'm not, there's no NDA, there's nothing like that. So I want to be clear that there's no breach of formal agreement
Gotcha.
around speaking about her own investigation. Now, I don't know about you, Richie, but I don't know what would possess anybody to want to willingly discuss their own investigation. But some things are beyond me. That said, what is protocol and what in the law, and this was not a trial per se, but it certainly was a proceeding. An investigation is a professional proceeding. When that type of thing happens, there is an implicit understanding to protect the integrity of the investigation, its
Hmm.
findings, and life after, that you operate with discretion around it. So to be clear, and I've said this when the shit first hit the page six the first time, somebody went and leaked that there was an investigation. I was like, well, I hate that it was leaked because for whatever I felt with Ramona at the time, wherever we were, I wouldn't wish it on anybody that an investigation of that nature would be made public. It's just not in the best interest of, of the dynamic in its totality. But since Ramona Singer was possessed to go and speak about her own investigation publicly, now you got to tell the whole story. You can't tell half a story. That is a no. Now you have to go ahead and go ahead and tell the entirety of the situation so that then people have full context.
Hmm. Yeah, and I remember you the first time we talked about this, you actually expressed a similar sentiment about wishing that it was not made public. So it's very telling to me that this is something that you didn't want to get out there because it really benefits no one,
No one.
especially the person who told the story.
That's why. But again, everybody's different. But yes, it was really bizarre to me that anybody who was the focus of an investigation would take it upon themselves, regardless of the results. And as you'll see in the episode that you've listened to now of Holding Court, sometimes you got to take them to human resources. There wasn't a really good result for her, but nonetheless, still, there is no benefit to publicizing that type of investigation.
So here's the thing, you kind of detail everything honestly about the two investigations prior to yours, okay?
Correct.
And then your investigation in which a cast member mentioned to you. Wait, let me go back because I don't want to assume.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Was it a cast member or was it a member of production that said to you at the lunch in the Hamptons where you were kicked out of Luann's home
Yes.
that Ramona said this is why Black people shouldn't be on this show?
Yes. So who told me that was an individual who was not on the cast.
Okay.
That was a very good look on my part. That was not a cast member, Richie, nor was it a member of production. It was an individual who is in close proximity and close relationship with a cast member. This person told me they were told directly from a cast member who was present that this was said. Again, I am a lawyer. Things have to go a certain way for me. I didn't necessarily even believe it to be true at that time. I just said, now I've received information. And I think Dustin made a good point on the Holding Court episode about this. That person told me for a reason. That person could have taken that information to their grave. I wasn't there. But for that person telling me, I would have never even known it was allegedly said. I was minding my business, Richie. This is summer 2021. Everything is already aired at this point, for the most part. So that person gave me this information on top of other things I had observed. Right. Now, these are firsthand observations. And I get into that again in the recent episode of Holding Court, where I talk about, how I would see Ramona engaging with Black senior producers on the show. And just, and this is the lesson, y'all. When you are experiencing anything on your job, this goes for Black people, gay people, women, Latino people, whatever, disabled people, whatever your category is. If you feel that you are witnessing and or experiencing things that are out of bounds, that's when you start making a dossier of sorts. You go to your laptop, you start a file, and you just document. And you just say, on November 3rd, 2023, we were in a restaurant in Massachusetts, and this is what I witnessed. This is what I was said. And then you keep going. And I had a log, not just for Ramona, by the way, for anybody that I felt was out of bounds. And then I sat with it and I just said, okay, these things are valid, but is it rising to the occasion of something that needs to be investigated further? And I made a decision at that point. I could take it or leave it, let's just my intention was to see how things go the following season. But when this information came to me, Richie, about this is why Black people shouldn't be on the show, that was particularly egregious for two reasons. It confirmed why we had never seen a Black woman on Roni, even though we are literally 26% of the population, met with 25% of our Latina sisters. Okay, so now we know why. And B, it's not about me. It's about the Black women that are also working this production, that are literally at work while this is being said. How are they made to feel? How are other people, white people included, that believe in a space where Black women are included? How is this making the people? So it was those things that said, let me now go ahead with this kind of totality of the circumstances is the legal term. Have a conversation. And that's all it was, Richie. It was a conversation. This was not, there's no report to fill out. That's not how it goes down. You have a conversation with human resources. You share what you know. You share what you've been told. And then they go about the business of trying to corroborate or not corroborate the information. And that is what happened.
And so that investigation was rendered inconclusive by either the network, the legal team, whoever is
Right.
doing the
The
investigation.
powers that be, which was a combination of all that you said there, did do an investigation on this issue, this particular issue of Black women. This is why Black women shouldn't be on this show. They were able to not, they came back to me and said, Ebony, we went through tape, we went through this, we went through that. We weren't able to find any corroborating evidence around it. Nobody will say they heard that. Okay. I have no dog in the fight. I'm not invested in proving anything here, you know. Got it. Good. Fine. Let's move on. Then it was months later, so they came back with that conclusion, Richie, around late August of 2021. Remember, I went to them in July when I first heard it. Like the 2 days after I heard it, we were on a Zoom. By mid-August, which is how long it took for them to go through everything and talk to who they talked to and conduct their investigation, they said, we're not able to corroborate anything about this particular allegation. Copy that. Now, throughout all of this, y'all were all reading headlines saying, Roni reunion delayed, Roni reunion canceled, Roni reunion because of this, that, and the third. And Ramona is right about that. The headlines were saying she was scared to confront me in person at a reunion. The headlines were saying she was boycotting. Something said her and Luann were boycotting the reunion. Who knows? I, to this day, don't know if any of that is true. What I find interesting, and this just occurred to me after I recorded Holding Court, so I'm glad we are having this conversation. Ramona's theory is that the reason the show was canceled and the reason we never had a reunion was because of this investigation going on. But that doesn't make sense in this way. Ramona had 2 prior investigations, the first of which took place in early to mid-October. That was the result of, and we'll get to, an earlier anti-Black thing that she has said, which was found to be corroborated. And then there was a secondary one that took place, had to be, because we filmed September through February. So this had to be probably around no, because I know the scene, and then so this had to be around November. This was November that the second one. So you had an investigation that occurred in October, and then you had another one in late November. And guess what was happening that entire time, Richie? We were filming. See what I'm saying here? Are you connecting these dots? Mm-hmm. We filmed. So we know that there is precedent to continue filming seasons, reunions, specials, whatever the fuck we want to film during an investigation. So to say that the reason that the reunion didn't happen and the reason we couldn't start filming was due to, in her framing, a kind of superfluous investigation of her, that dog doesn't hunt. Because we know we have already filmed not once but twice, Richie, while your same ass was under investigation for similar accusations. So there you go. Go ahead now.
Did you know? You didn't know at the time about.
I did not know at the time. I did not know at the time because those other 2 investigations had nothing to do with me specifically. They had to do with production members and producers and people on the production team who happened to also be Black women. And there were only 3 of us, by the way. Go ahead.
In the episode today, you made reference to the network maybe bringing on additional women of color. Yes. When they, at least for when this season started to air, do you think that was a conscious effort to, just hire more people of color for those specific roles as we had been hearing that there had been an initiative to do so? Or do you think it was specifically to work with you?
Ooh, that's nuanced. I think it was both. I think because I was with you the first half of your question, and I think yes. So let's start there. I definitely think the network knew if we're going to have a Black woman and we're going to have this kind of Black woman, let's be clear, a Black woman who leads with her Blackness, a Black woman who is an academically trained, person around Blackness. We need to up the cultural competency. And I say up, but really create it because it wasn't there before in any capacity. So we need to somewhat try to create an effort of cultural competency as we now have a Black woman a part of this ensemble. So I think it's twofold. So on one level, we need some Black folk behind the scenes for the broader competency of the ensemble. And we need a couple of Black folks, and again, it was just a couple, to make sure that Eboni, our new housewife, has some level of comfort, perhaps, and or support.
Okay. And I'm gonna probably jump back to that point, but I want to move forward because after your complaint, we get the word from Heather Thompson
Yeah,
from Page Six that allegedly for her, she felt like she heard Ramona say, "This is why we shouldn't have Black people on the show." She
yes,
said that via Page Six. So then, after the investigation was found inconclusive initially, they reopened the investigation.
that is correct.
Do you think, and this is, I'm of course asking you to speculate because Ramona blames all of this on you.
Right,
But if the initial investigation was found inconclusive, and we know that they allegedly did not even ask Heather whether
right.
it was stated or not,
Hmm.
do you think it was Heather's coming forward with the notion that it was stated that really put the nail in the coffin on the reunion?
Speculating, probably,
Hmm.
probably. I think it further complicated the entire issue. And I think at some point, if I'm a network executive, I'm gonna say the hell with it.
Right.
Because again, let's go back to prior to Heather's Page Six interview. And I want to be very clear, it ain't even like Heather fuck with me like that. And I don't fuck with her like that. So it's not like we were having back channel conversation like, girl, you need to tell. I haven't spoken to Heather Thompson in about 2 years, So, and we never had really a relationship of sorts, as you guys saw play out. So that was Heather Thompson on her own volition for her own reasons. And I, to this day, Richie, haven't spoken to Heather since that interview. Nothing about that. Like, girl, what took you so long? If you knew that, none of that. Because I believe in letting shit play out. And that's a life hack, y'all. If you know some fuckery is going on, or same thing in dating.
Ooh,
No, I'm not the type of person to go through nobody's phone, Richie.
Ebony,
I don't need to go through your phone. You know why? Because
you
my God is gonna show me what I need to know.
you know what's funny? That has been my life lesson this week is to let things play out. I could let you preach about that one to me because that the statement was that you preach.
You know what? Guess what, Richie? Sometimes a little gospel's needed. Okay. But yeah, it's true. It's true. I don't ever believe in doing too much to prove and find and let me investigate. Again, I'm a woman of faith, and this is very serious for me. God will give you the tools you need to discern what needs to be known. That is a life lesson. So I was minding my black ass business when one day, out of the clear blue sky, people start sending me these Page Six Heather Thompson exclusives. Ooh, Heather said it. You was right. What they gonna do now? And let me tell you the tea. I didn't even go to the network then. I didn't do ring, 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 ring. And some people were telling me, well, now you need to do it. I didn't have to do a damn thing, Richie. I did not even reach out to HR, human resources, business affairs, none of that. The diversity chief, I kept minding my business and working on my other projects. On their own volition, to their credit, HR and them decided to reopen and launch a secondary investigation off the strength of Heather's statement in Page Six. And her statement was very clear. I was there. I heard it. And no one ever asked me about it in said so-called investigation. That's what Heather said. Don't take my word for it. Go look at the document. So once that happened, there was a secondary investigation. They allegedly, and again, I don't know because I was never a part of the investigation. Heather was interviewed. Some others were interviewed. They came back and they said, we've concluded a second interview. Heather stands by her word. We find her credible, but she's the only piece of credible evidence we have around the statement. So therefore, we can't conclude much around that in the totality. This will be deemed inconclusive. That's it. But I agree with you, Richie. I think the time, again, because it's a timeline issue. So now you had an initial investigation that was concluded in late August, early September, because we were supposed to film the reunion. We had a date, and I want to say it was like I don't know, it was late September or some shit like that, because it had to be then, because then the next month I was going to Panama to film Beyond the Edge. So this was all happening. Then I think the heather of it all, they had to reopen an investigation. That took time. And by the time they concluded, yes, I agree. I think at that point, they felt it was all just too convoluted and too problematic. And again, I think it was the compounding effect. You know, at this point, they knew I knew about the previous two investigations that had been corroborated. So when I went to them initially, I didn't know anything else around Ramona had ever existed via human resources. By this point, now people are telling me, because now it's been made public. Oh, girl, well, you know, and some of these people, these are now rumors. These are the people. These are the women. These are the Black women that these things are happening to, are coming to me and saying, Eboni, I want to thank you for your courage. We know you're risking your job, but we need to also let you know that this, and this happened in the backdrop of everything else that you experienced. Okay, so now it's, are you telling me that this woman, and I ain't talking about nothing y'all seeing on your cameras. I ain't talking about Black Shabbat. I'm not talking about you coming for a Black woman's maternal health crisis. I'm not talking about you coming for Jewish people, talking about the Jews was mad at you and all the implications of that anti-Semitic statement. We ain't talking about none of that, Richie. We're just talking about what happened behind the scenes that was corroborated. I think that was too much to try to put back together.
You spoke about two women specifically in the podcast that came forward with their own experiences with Ramona, and these were the two complaints that were filed. One of them was a senior producer.
Yes.
And I know her experience was very interesting in that the N-word was used to describe how Ramona felt in comparison, like, I guess, being bullied in her own description. And she likened it to being called the N-word and then proceeded to say it to the senior producer.
Yeah, she said it. She didn't spell it. She didn't say N-word. She said Nigger in its full strength.
Do you know, I mean, and maybe you can't tell us this, but was that producer then, did she have to continue to still work with her? Because that to me that would be a little bit traumatic for me.
I think I know for a fact it was very traumatic for this woman, because I've had the conversation. Was she made to continue work with Ramona? I don't know about that, but I know that she did continue to work with Ramona. I think those of us that go to work, we work for a reason. So I would say that's understandable.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about what she had to have been going through or thinking or pushing herself through. And we've all experienced it on some usually sly, subtle level, but that was pretty blatant. You know, Ramona talked about you and her having a good relationship behind the scenes, but yet there seemed to be on the surface, or at least I guess I should say, an undercurrent of contention, because how do you guys communicate with each other after all of this stuff has hit the internet?
Yeah, so let's unpack that. I'm pretty good with compartmentalizing, meaning I can have a relationship with somebody that is surface, and even Ramona said on Carlos's recent podcast episode, I really don't know Eboni well. And I'm glad she said that, because that's a fact. One of the few facts she mentioned. And I don't really know Ramona Singer well after all this time. There's reasons for that. I know we don't trust each other. I think we are both acute enough in our intellect to know that our whys, and this, I'm gonna say this real slow, Richie, because this is really the root as to why all of Roni 13 was as hostile as it was, both on camera and behind the scenes. And this is why the cast of 13 didn't proceed. My why as to why I did the show, and their why as to why they do the show, were in direct conflict. That's the issue. It wasn't that, oh, I can't stand that bitch for this personal reason or that personal reason. although Luann did have a real serious issue with me that actually I don't think had much at all to do with race. Luann is just the type of woman that really cannot stand being in space with another woman of shared beauty, intellect, class, and position. She has a very, very difficult time with that. So that's something else. Anyway, the whys. And Ramona said it, and she was honest about this part. Her why is two things and two things only: to get her check, which for her and them, absent Leah, is a big check. Ramona, Luann, and Sonia were all making upwards of $1 million a season. That is a lot of money. I understand that. And I make space for that. And then the other why was ratings, 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 ratings. Now, this is where she's short-sighted, though, Richie. Yes, ratings are very important for those of us that create content. But how we really get paid is not the ratings. Nobody gets money from ratings. We get money from advertisers. And advertisers are willing to normally pay more for advertising space on your platform when your ratings are higher, because they construe it with more viewers for their ads. Thus, it's more valuable. What Ramona didn't understand was she talking about an executive that came up to her at a cocktail party in circa probably 2005 or some shit, talking about you're the highest rated and you did this for our brand. Ramona, you and the show's brand has evolved and really deteriorated since I assure you, since that conversation was had. So now you and your pre-existing narrative, Richie, your longtime Housewives Bravo person, people have been saying Ramona was racist and problematic for years before Eboni K. Williams was a thing on Bravo.
Mm-hmm.
I know it because I watched it. By this point, Ramona, brands are not interested in being in business with you because you represent something that while you're and let's talk about ratings for a minute. The lowest rated season of Real Housewives of New York was season 13. That is a fact. And you know what the lowest rated season was before that? Season 12. And so on and so on. That show had been slipping in ratings, Richie, and you nodding because you know it's true. And again, go pull the numbers. Go pull the numbers. Since Bethany left the second time. So stop. Stop with this narrative of, oh, our show was so highly rated until this Black-centered bitch came on our show. Ma'am, that's a lie. Ma'am, the reality is, Roni, as it was already decreasing in relevancy, numbers-wise, and ad dollars-wise, which is why the powers that be, this wasn't some UN politically correct special. This was the business people making a business decision. This was the business people saying, hey, look at Potomac. Look at Atlanta. We need to look at Family Karma, which is doing great and beloved and growing. We need to figure out a way to bring some of this spice, some of this cultural infusion to Roni because it's stale. It's fine. It's a legendary franchise in its own right, to be clear, but it's not growing. How do we grow it? That was a business decision. And back to my castmates, their inability, other than Sonia Morgan. And again, this is not so much about me and Sonia being a spoon cool. And I do enjoy Sonia. I got some Sonia sangria right here in the cabinet. And Sonia enjoys me. But it ain't about that. It is about the fact that Sonia is low-key the smartest one of them. I've been telling y'all that. And she understood that for her to have a place on this platform for another 4 or 5 years, it would require the making space, the sharing space with additive cast members to grow their audience base, to grow the fan base, to give them relevancy, So that's all it was. So Ramona's insistence, and Luann's as well, on maintaining a white, exclusively centered show is the reason that this kept happening.
You spoke about Sonia on the podcast earlier and here being the only person that really welcomed you in terms of making space for you as a Black woman and your Black experience without having. And I think the issue is looking back, it becomes even more apparent what the actual issue is during this moment here. Let me add it, wherein you are having to comfort Ramona
Mm-hmm.
because you asked her about how she felt about a woman being in the White House or being in that position, what
Right.
her feelings were about it, versus simply answering the question and moving on. She had a conniption fit, right? So we see it in action here, and I think viewers blamed you for asking the question when really the opposite could be said for Ramona's hyperkinetic reaction to a mere question that is relevant to women. Now,
For
I
women.
want to ask you this with regards to Sonia kind of being that the one person that really did make that space. On the surface, it appeared to us as though Leah was that person. So my question to you is, at what point did you find out that you were not in the group chat anymore? Because we saw this with Garcelle on Beverly Hills this week. And what is her, because she seemed like such an ally to you and for us as viewers, what was your feeling and how did you find out about not being in that group chat?
Well, Sonia told me.
Okay. Okay.
Sonia Morgan told me flat out, called me one night. I was in LA, and she, among some other things that she shared, let me know that, yeah, girl, we got a whole group chat that you are not in because they are threatened and feel pissed off about how you are choosing to show up on this show. Okay, great. As for the Leah of it all, I get into a lot of these details in the book. And it's not dragging Leah, so we're not even gonna do that because there's no reason to drag her. What I say and what I'll tell you right now, Richie, is Leah is a relatively young woman who understandably is trying to protect her interest. And
Mhm.
I believe, and this was again, this is what all of this shit from Roni is about. Everybody's trying to do what is in their interest. And that's great as long as our interests are aligned. They don't have to be
Mhm.
the exact same, but there needs to be an alignment of interest. So if the alignment of interest is you do you, I do me, but ultimately we're on this show together and we are collaborating as an ensemble and we're driving ratings and we're driving ad dollars and you're getting paid and I'm getting paid and my kid's going to private school and everything's great and I'm buying real estate. Great, 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 great. And I believe that when I was initially cast, and I talk about this in the book, I was not even supposed to be brought on to the show through Leah. Yep, in the book, chapter 3. Um, there were some things that happened, last minute decision, literally day before we filmed that first Central Park scene where I'm wearing the exonerated 5 and we're talking about taking a poop and all of that. Because if I eat, I'm definitely taking a poop. That's to be clear. Um, you see, they forgot all that, Richie. They wouldn't.
Same.
Um, day before that, we are introduced through the executive producers on the show, and it's fine. I believe Leah thought this. I believe Leah thought two things. Number one, again, from a consumer lens, blackness is profitable, right? And so thus black proximity is profitable. Good. It helps with my relevance. No judgment. You ain't wrong. Yep. But also, go back to season 12, Richie. Leah was a fan favorite. She was seen as the breakout star of season 12. Once Bethany had left the show, I believe Leah and many others, so I don't fault her for believing this, felt she would be the center point of the future of the franchise.
Mm.
Which is why I think she and the ladies had some times on season 12. See, this is also a part of it, right? This is also an old guard not wanting to relinquish centeredness to something
Mm.
new that's going to benefit everyone involved. And see, this is another life lesson. See, some of y'all listening to this right now on y'all's job, you've been on your jobs 20, 30 years, and you're making what the company sees as too much money. Let's talk about the money. So when you are on your job and you're making 150 and you do it fine, but they know they can bring in someone else that can also do it fine for 30,000, you're vulnerable. You're vulnerable and you don't even know it. And I think this applies to Ramona, Sonia, and Luann because of their huge paychecks. And their inability to deliver anything particularly special the last few seasons, I don't even think that's controversial. Other than pooping on the floor a couple of times and calling people to help. What? It's been a long time since we saw you crying about Mario. It's been a long time since we saw you, talking about being the Countess, the things that made the show iconic. See, I'm giving people the real now. People don't want to talk about this part. It's been a long time since y'all were delivering the moments that made you icons. So now you're coasting essentially, but at the rate of 1.2, 1.3 million dollars. Now you can't coast like that, baby. Not today. Not when y'all were doing that. The broader franchise of Housewives was pulling in 3.5 million viewers a night. Now any franchise is lucky to clock 1.2. Facts. You gotta look at that. See, here's the problem with when people deal with me, Richie. They think I just play smart on TV. Bitch, I'm really smart for real. And I pull back the curtain and I look at the numbers and I look at the business and I connect the dots. So Ramona, Sonia, and Lou, before I was even on the scene, y'all were already vulnerable. If for no other reason than how much money you do make. So therefore, your posture in season 13, no matter who they bought on, should have been of cooperation, should have been of deference, should have been of get the fuck out the way and let this new guard take hold and hope that you will be included in the ensemble of 14, 15, 16, and 17 seasons of Roni at the tune of, I don't know, 600K, 700K, if you're lucky. That's what a businesswoman thinks, Richie. But no, y'all want to be greedy. Y'all want to hold on to the apples and the center points of the show by all means, which are overpriced asses. And you want to push out the cheap newbies, including Leah, season 12. And you undermine your own positioning. And again, Sonia was the only person that understood the math. She's like, she told me this. And I said, Sonia ain't dumb. Sonia said, Eboni, this was on one of them phone calls she made to me. When I go in the airport and I look at the magazines, I don't even see white women on the cover no more. She's like, all the magazines are all these beautiful Black women. So I get it, and I'm just trying to be a part. That's the thing of a smart person, knowing how to get in position. But when you want to try to force someone like me out of position with your little group chat, you've gotten both the right and the wrong one at the same time.
Do you still have any contact with any of the ladies at this point? Did anybody reach out to you in the past couple of days?
Oh, no, definitely not. But and again, that's not anything to me because we never had those kind of relationships. I didn't know these women. I agree with the viewers. The shows always work best when it is an authentic friend group because now the conflict can be relatively harmless. Now the conflict can be surface. The conflict can be light. The conflict around our show was, and Bethany Frankel said this a long time ago. I don't know what platform, but she said 99% of what you are seeing play out as so-called conflict on the show is not about what you see. It's about the show. It is about people putting their feet in the sand and saying, this is what I need to happen on this show for my mostly financial interests. And so I'm going to come for you in this particular way to undermine that so that I can reclaim my, look at Ramona in the Carlos podcast, Richie, PR couldn't control her. Now, why would you want to control a free Black woman, Ramona? That's crazy. Run into the bathroom, calling Shed Media's president. She's doing it again. She's being really Black again.
I wanted to ask you, did you ever get a call from production like, hey, tone it down a little bit, as Ramona is suggesting that she's running to the bathroom and making calls? Did you ever receive any notification like, hey, about that?
Nope. And I'm so glad I didn't, because that really would have been a whole nother fucking problem. But no, Richie. Because again, as I say and outline in the Holding Court episode that dropped today, nothing about how I showed up was a surprise to anybody but my castmates. Now I understand that a lot of people were unaware of who I was and what I was about pre-Roni. That's the power of the platform. I give it that. But if you had been paying attention even a little bit, I have a bachelor's in Black Studies from UNC Chapel Hill. I now have a doctorate, okay, in this work from Benedict College. I'm a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I am now the author of Bet on Black. Before, it's like everything in my wheelhouse screams, this is a liberated. My name is Eboni. My name, Richie, is Eboni Kiana Williams. Who's hiding? Who's hiding? No, see, this is the default thinking of obsessive white-centered individuals who can't even fathom a positioning of a Black woman on their show as anything other than a happy to be here Negro that's happy to be a sidekick. That's what we're talking about. Oh, yes, that's what we're talking about.
You gave Ramona some advice at the end of your episode.
Yep.
And that was I don't want to spoil it, but I feel like it's the most poignant piece of advice that I think we can end on is go to work.
Go to work. Yeah.
Tell us exactly what that meant for you in that moment.
Yeah, work is important. And this cuts through racial lines. This cuts through gender. This cuts through sexual orientation. Work is important. I know a lot of these younger folks don't want to hear it because y'all want the drip, but you don't want to do the work. Ain't gonna happen. Got to do the work. Okay. So here's the thing. And this goes for Ramona too. When I got the call, and we all got the same call, Richie, and this is a great place to end. When I got the call, we all got the same call. I'm talking about Leah, Lou, Ramona, and Sonia. We all got the same call. Almost this time last year, I'd have to look up, but whatever day that Variety piece dropped, where Andy did that exclusive with Kate Arthur and said, we finally figured out what we're doing with Roni. We're splitting it up. We're going to do a legacy cast, and we're going to do a whole new reboot. I already knew then, because I'm not a delusional type of bitch. Okay, this is unlikely to be in my future, meaning Real Housewives of New York. So now it's time to call on my skill set, open the suitcase. What can I do that I can monetize and go to fucking work? And I literally did that then. I was talking to a good friend, Eugene Scott, this morning about that. So whenever that was, which I think was almost a year ago, I said, thank you so much to Shed, who made the call. Not great. And they were, you know how they do. And it's fine. I think they believed it. They're like, listen, the legacy's going to be the legacy, but the reboot, listen, we want you. We're certainly going to look at Leah. Give us your friends. Give us who you know. We're going to consider that. And I did that. Of course I did that. And understandably, they went in another direction. But what I'm telling you, Richie, is when I got that call almost a year ago, I went to work then. I went to work with my book proposal had already been accepted and purchased. But now I went to work on my manuscript at that point. I went to work on procuring what the next iteration of my news journalism career was going to look like at that point. I went to work on Holding Court, had a great successful first year run. I'm very proud of it. We got nominated for a Webby, only woman of any color to be nominated in news and politics category. But I knew the show was capable of more, and that's why you guys are seeing a new and improved season 2 with Interval Presents. Drops every Wednesday wherever you get your podcast. I went to work on elevating Holding Court. I went to work on, there's a whole nother syndicated project that y'all don't even know about that's dropping next fall. Like, I went to work because I know that that my why on Roni for me was never about the check, because as a freshman housewife, I lost money, as most of us do. So it was around the platform. It was around being able to be on a global stage in front of millions of people globally, Richie, and show a different kind of Blackness. And a Blackness that's not different to you and I, because we know brilliant, beautiful, sassy, fucking Black queens every day.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, we know that this is not the representation that Black women get enough of on global mainstream platform. And I talk about all the reasons that is in Better on Black. So my ability to get to represent that type of Blackness on Real Housewives of New York was an honor. And if you felt a way about me, quote, ruining your entertainment experience with an elevated sense of beauty, class, grace, and Blackness, just look in the mirror and know you are the problem. Oh, you are the problem. And that's okay. Because here's the thing. If you felt a way about my insistence on bringing up my Blackness, my beauty, look at Ramona in the podcast with Carlos. Still to this day, in this moment of uptick of anti-Semitism, this uptick of anti-Blackness, this uptick, Richie, of homophobia, more Black trans women being killed per capita than any year on record. Ramona Singer talking about, why did it have to be a Black Shabbat? Why not a purple, Shabbat. No, Ramona. And know those that think like Ramona. It was very important that it was a Black Shabbat. You know why? Because as we are seeing by the ignorance of Kanye West and others like him, anti-Blackness and anti-Semitism go hand in fucking hand every time. So it's important that I present a beautiful, elegant evening with my Jewish sister, Archie, that shows the alliance, that shows the co-conspiratorship of the beauty and power that happens when Black and Jewish communities show up together and for one another.
Mm-hmm.
See why it's important now, Richie?
Yeah.
See, I don't do the time and place police. Those that say, well, I appreciate what you're doing, Eboni, and I agree with what you're doing. I just don't want it on my Housewives show. Well, this is what I say to you, and I'm going to be done with it. You can't have it both ways. You can't dictate that racism, anti-Blackness, transphobia, homophobia, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia are problems that our country needs to do better around. You can't believe that. And then also dictate the time and place in which we need to do that work. And so that's important. We got to do that, y'all, but not on Tuesdays at 8:00. So then what you want me to do? You want me to take my phone out and say, okay, so we're going to discuss these global threats to our nation and society and our children's future. What y'all want to do? Y'all want to do November 3rd at 2? Or y'all want to do, no, that's not good. That's not good. Hold on. How about December 13th at 5? Y'all want to do, does that work for you? No? Okay. You know what? Fuck it. Let's go to 2023. See how it happens, Richie? So that's some bullshit. If you feel that way, you know you want some bullshit. And if you didn't know before, Auntie E now told you. This work that I'm trying to do, and that those that are in the arena with me, I love me some Brene Brown, are trying to do requires a tenacity and a compass that is all consuming all the time. And it is you that need to contend with your comfort around it. That's it.
Eboni K. Williams, y'all. First of all, let me say this before we go. Eboni, you are the type of individual and person that I am so happy to know. You you encourage me to level up every time we have a conversation or an interaction. And I just want to say thank you. And I hope that you just keep doing the work. And I know you will. Yeah. And, whenever you have something to promote, you want to talk, you got something new coming out, stop by.
Thank you.
And we can talk about it.
And I've told you this on the record and off. I think what you represent, I personally, as a consumer of the content, I think you represent an ideal intersection of the pop culture of it all, which we love, we enjoy, and is needed, and the questioning, the critical. It's okay to have a critical thought around the things that we enjoy socially and culturally. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate your platform. I watch you on the news in DC. I watch your YouTubes. I watch you social media wise. And I think you give a lot of what we call the sugar with the vegetables. And when I first got into broadcasting, I tried to lean into that space as well. Well, fuck that sugar shit. Yeah, yeah, broccoli, this goddamn asparagus, cauliflower is having a moment, and everything else. And the most sugar you're gonna get is this drip. Is this drip? Because it looks good. I know it does. You ain't got to tell me. I know it. So that's it. Love you.
Ebony, I need you to tell the people where they can find everything Eboni K. Williams, and I'm leaving it on this image because I want them to leave with this image as well. But let them know everywhere they can find anything that they want to know about you.
Yes, yes, yes. I love y'all. Okay, so Bet on Black. The good news about being Black in America today. Buy it right now, y'all. You don't need to wait. Buy it right now. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, anywhere you get your books. Buy it right now. It's going to be a huge, point of conversation for the culture at large. And my publisher, and I we love the book. The cover. Sophie Holland shot this cover, y'all. She's brilliant. I've worked with Sophie for years. She killed this cover. And she killed this cover so much, Richie, that I was like, God damn, bitch. Now I got to write a book. Good. but the good news is that we did it. Is that the book absolutely exceeds this amazing cover. So buy that right now on Amazon and where you get your books. Also, Holding Court with Eboni K. Williams, featuring the great, brilliant Dustin Ross, who also has been working, has a new Revolt TV show that he is hosting called Bet on Black. Catch that on Revolt TV, my former home, but now my new home. Catch The Griot with Eboni K. Williams every night, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, wherever you get The Griot. The app, the cable news channel that Byron Allen acquired, used to be Black News Channel. Now it's The Griot. So podcast, book, news show, syndicated show coming next. Oh, also this fall, you can catch me on OWN and Investigative Discovery. If you're a true crime junkie, yes, honey, Auntie E has been working. I am doing a whole series about crime in New York City. So more to come.
You got me with the true crime. Okay. So we got a lot to look forward to.
Yeah.
Eboni, thank you so much. I just love you. I can't even tell you. Just you are such an inspiration. And you're so real, and I thank you for that.
Thank you, baby. No, I love you. I know I was on one, but I think everything that was said needed to be said. I feel, and I feel that way about the podcast. Again, I was really trying to be very Mariah with it all. Remember, I off my chariot. I miss Mariah.
Same.
However, when you open the door around this type of issue, and I like to have fun, Richie. I like to, do the things. But ultimately, the one thing I have going for me in this life is my name and my credibility. And I'm not going to let nobody fuck with that. So that's why the episode needed to be made. It's entitled, so catch it right now, wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, whatever. Sometimes in life, you got to take an MF to HR. And it's good.
Amen. Y'all can listen to it in the description down below. Eboni, thank you so much.
Thank you, baby. Have a fabulous weekend. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.